Hello, good morning. Good morning, everyone. Okay. Today we are facing some technical issues. So, screen won't be here. So, you have to look at here. This is your screen for today. Okay. So, let me just check the streaming. Just give me a moment. Yes, it's on. Okay. So, we are discussing various provisions related to input tax credit under GST. Most important topic. Okay, not only from your exam perspective but also from practical applicability of GST. This is a backbone of the GST. So if input tax credit related aspects do not work effectively in practical life, the entire success of GST is going for a toss. So that is the most crucial aspect, because you know that the benefit of input tax credit is not carried forward to the next chain, then the automatically price of the product or the service becomes higher. So that is the reason it is very crucial to implement all the aspects related to input tax credit appropriately. We till now we have seen various provisions related to input tax credit. What is that? First of all, meaning of input tax credit. What is that? Benefit of taxes paid to the earlier chain by the buyer or the procurer, and benefit in form of offsetting of the taxes paid along with the liabilities of the supplier. Then the term input tax credit is not only restricted to inputs but also input services and capital goods. What is capital goods? Which is capitalized in your books of accounts. Input services charged off to P&L account and in the nature of services is input services, and inputs which is not capital goods and input services is inputs, everything else that is remaining. Is there any difference between the provisions of capital goods and inputs and input services as far as ITC is concerned? The answer is no. There are various areas in GST where the provisions differ, but not in case of ITC. It is the same as far as GST, as far as ITC is concerned. Then we have seen the conditions to claim or conditions to become eligible to claim the input tax credit. What are those conditions? Condition number one: the procurer has to be registered in GST. An unregistered person cannot claim the benefit of input tax credit. Then second is that the person who is going to claim the benefit of input tax credit should procure the goods or services in the course or furtherance of business, or it should be intended to be used in the course or furtherance of business. Then the person who is going to claim the input tax credit should receive the goods or services to claim the input tax credit. So if there is a time gap between the tax invoice date and actual physical receipt of the goods or services, then the person who is in receipt of invoice but has not received the goods or services has to wait till the point actual goods or services are received by him to claim the benefit of input tax credit. Then which is next? Restriction on the input tax credit for the furnishing of details of by the supplier in his statements. Which is that statement? GSTR 1. So we have seen the matching and matching rule, that is rule 36(4), as far as the eligibility of input tax credit is concerned. So for matched invoices means whatever input tax credit that the buyer is going to claim, the respective supplier should furnish the details of such supply in their respective GSTR 1s. If it is matching, then 100% eligibility. If it is not matching, then 5% maximum of the match credit, and from 1st January 2022 at par to the match credits. Clear? Then which point? Yes, please, little louder. Restriction on utilization, that is rule 86B. What does it say? If the turnover of a particular period, that is month, is more than 50 lakh rupees, you have to check for every period separately. If that is more than 50 lakh rupees, then the person, even if he has input tax credit at his credit, cannot utilize it to the extent of 100%. At least 1% of the liability he has to discharge through his electronic cash ledgers, means by payment of bank he cannot utilize the input tax credit to that 1% extent. That is rule 86B, and there are certain exceptions which we have already discussed. Then which point comes? We have also seen a, yes, Yes, the tax which is recovered by the supplier should be deposited by that supplier to the government. So tax payment by the supplier is another condition that needs to be fulfilled. If the tax is recovered by the supplier but not deposited with the government, the buyer becomes ineligible to claim that input tax credit because that money has not reached to the government treasury. That is the logic. We have seen the pre-GST regime litigations on that area and how that provision itself is incorporated now in GST to make it a default condition in GST. We have seen both the areas. Then we have also seen the concept of bill to ship to, that was in context with which point of the conditions? Physical receipt of goods or services. So in case of a bill to ship to transaction, it is a deeming provision that even if the goods are not received, it will be deemed to be received and the eligibility for input tax credit comes into the picture. This happens when specifically on order of a third person, the supplier sends goods to directly to the customer. In that case, the goods are not delivered or physically not received by that third person who is ordering the supplier to send the goods to some other location. Even in that case, it is deemed that that third person who is ordering that supplier to send goods to some other location has received those goods and send it to the actual buyer. So all those points we have seen, and we started yesterday with additional conditions which contained goods received in lots. What happens in case of goods received in lots? When does the input tax credit becomes eligible to be claimed? Whenever the last lot is received. We have seen the example of windmill, wherein the goods are consigned or sent into different consignments like that. So whenever the last consignment is received by the procurer or the buyer, at that point the buyer becomes eligible to claim the input tax credit benefit. Clear till this point? Any doubts? Okay, good. So next condition that we are going to see is an interesting condition. काय झालं? What happened? Okay, all conditions are interesting, but this is more interesting. This is related to payment. Sir, payment sir. Oh, sorry. Okay, how do I explain? Okay, anyway, just try to imagine. Okay, I will write it here because it is getting streamed, so I will write it here, but you try to imagine whatever I am trying to say. Okay, it is related to payment. नाही ऑनलाईन बघू नका, ऑनलाईन बघा तुम्ही नंतर. पेमेंट नाही, तुम्हाला स्क्रीन दिसणार नाही, पण मी आय एम रिपीटिंग व्हॉट आय एम रायटिंग. सो प्लीज तुम्ही पण लिहा, तुम्हाला समजेल. ओके, सो व्हॉट आय एम रायटिंग इज पेमेंट बाय buyer to supplier. Now please concentrate, this is very interesting. पेमेंट बाय बायर. मी हे तुम्हाला नंतर लिंक शेअर करतो, रेकॉर्डेड लेक्चरची मी माझ्या टेलिग्राम वरती लिंक शेअर करतो, सो डोंट वरी. रुकावट के लिए खेद है, जस्ट फॉर अ डे. पेमेंट बाय बायर टू सप्लायर. ओके, व्हाट इज दैट? सो प्लीज राइट द डेट्स विच आई एम राइटिंग इन योर नोटबुक. First December 2021. First December 2001, 21 is the date of the invoice. Is the date of the invoice. 1st December 2021. Goods are sold by Mr. A to Mr. B. Goods are sold by Mr. A to Mr. B on 1st December 2021. तुम्ही लिहू नका सगळं, बाकी फक्त डेट्स लिहा, सो दॅट कॅल्क्युलेशन करता येईल. सो गुड्स आर सोल्ड बाय मिस्टर ए टू मिस्टर बी on 1st December 2021. Now in the purchase order, the payment terms are 60 days. 60 days. Payment terms are 60 days. Means मी ट्राय करतोय म्हणजे सायमल्टेनियसली, डोंट लुक ॲट देअर. जर झालं तर झालं, लेट्स टेक अ चान्स. 60 days म्हणजे 60 days means by which date the payment should happen against that invoice. Roughly calculate na. December and January. So maybe 29th January or 30 Jan. 29th. Okay. 30th January. 30th January. You write this date, please. 30th January 2021, by which the payment should be made against that invoice. Against that invoice by the buyer to the supplier. Correct? Those are the terms agreed between buyer and seller. Okay, simple आहे. 60 दिवसाचा क्रेडिट पिरियड दिलेला आहे. 60 days credit is given by the seller to buyer and that credit period gets over on 30th January 2021. Now what happens is that the buyer is not in a position to make that payment up till that date and not after that also, because the buyer Mr. B is stuck in a very big financial stress and there is no working capital left to pay off the debts and the banks are refusing to give any loans and there are reduced orders because of pandemic and so many other reasons. So because of which B is not able to make payment to A till the due date of payment. Due date is agreed between A and B, so that is a different story. What has GST to do with this? So GST, now this continues for another few months. So let's calculate 180 days. 180 days from the date of invoice. What is the date? 31st May. 28th May, 29th May. Sure, I am writing it here. I have not calculated. 2022. Okay. So 180 days are getting over on 29th May 2022. 29th May 2022. So GST says if payment is not made, okay, just first tell me, whenever the invoice is received on 1st December 2021, Mr. B is going to claim the benefit of input tax credit of the same in which month? December itself. At that point nobody knows when the payment will be made in future. At that time only terms are agreed between buyer and seller. Nobody knows. But assuming that everything will be fine, A will sell the goods, show it in his GSTR1 as outward tax liability, and B in his GSTR3B claim it as input tax credit. Any doubt in this? Because everything depends upon this particular fact. Have you understood this? Clear to everyone? In the month of December, as the date of invoice is 1st December 2021, the supplier will show this invoice in his outward statement, that is GSTR1, and buyer will show this as input tax credit in his GSTR3B. Now B has already claimed the input tax credit. Now GST Act says if the payment of that invoice by the buyer, that is B, is not made to Mr. A, that is supplier, within 180 days, which is ending on 29th May 2022, then the credit becomes ineligible. Now what to do? क्या करोगे आप? What is the solution that you have? He has already claimed. because all the other conditions are satisfied. Invoice is issued, shown by supplier, goods are received, everything is done, tax payment is made by the supplier. All other conditions till point which we have seen as a conditions to claim input tax credit, all are satisfied. But there are other conditions which say if payment is not made within 180 days, then you are not eligible to claim input tax credit. Now what needs to be done in this case? You tell me. अरे क्या करेंगे? Client has come to you seeking your advice as a chartered accountant. What would you suggest? It is very simple. What can be done? Can we revise the return in GST? There is no provision of revising a return in GST. You cannot go back for December month and revise the return. That is gone. Exactly. Very logical. So 29th May falls due in which month? May month. May month मध्ये extra pay करायचं तेवढं. So in the month of May, as I was not eligible, see, when I am going to understand whether I have made payment within 180 days or not, after on the 180th day I will understand na, whether I have made payment within 180 days or not. How in advance I would know? So whichever month is that in which that 180 days get complete, in that month's liability you pay that input tax credit back to the government. Understood? Okay, but what happens on 5th of June? You write the date, 5th of June 2022. My loan is approved from bank and I have funds now to pay that invoice. So on 5th of June, I pay that invoice. Don't write approved loan and etc. That is all story that is created. Just write that 5th June the payment is made against that invoice of 1st December. Then what now? Credit was taken, it was sent back also. Now what will I do? Credit was first availed, sent back because 180 days not payment not made. But on 5th June I have money. I made the payment to the buyer, seller. अब क्या करें? Don't be afraid to give wrong answers. Just give it a try. फिर से ऐसे ITC claim करो. What is the big issue in that? Why everyone is so confused? Chalo, let's see what is the provision discussed in 3A. Payment in 180 days. Open your page number 204. In that 3A. मिला सबको? Okay, just I am reading it, the provision now. The registered person must pay to the supplier the value of goods and or services along with the tax within 180 days from the date of issue of invoice. In the event of failure to do so, means payment not made within 180 days, the corresponding credits availed by the registered person would be added to his output tax liability with interest. Added to his tax liability means whatever tax liability was there for the month of May 2022, in that liability he will also add the tax pertaining to that 1st December invoice. Okay. Interest will be paid at the rate of 18% from the date of availing credit till the date when the amount is added to the outward tax liability. Interest, because that was not eligible, you have still claimed, so you have to pay interest. Okay. Now recredit on payment. It is called as re-availment in GST. Re-availment means first it was availed, then it was sent back, and then now you are re-availing it. However, once recipient makes the payment of value of goods and or services along with tax, he will be entitled to avail the credit again without any time limit. In case part payment has been made, proportionate credit would be allowed. Okay. Now, my question to you is that, do you remember our first lecture on input tax credit? In that lecture, I had explained the difference between availment and utilization. How many of you remember the difference between availment and utilization? Yes, what is that? ठीक से बताओ चलो. Any language would do. Perfect, right? So availment means claiming the input tax credit, and utilization means setting it off against your liability. Now, what is the difference? Main difference I told you between availment and utilization. Can anyone remember? Yes. Availment and utilization. Main crucial difference. Correct? Very right. Restriction on time, which the provision is yet to be seen, but I had explained you at that time that you can avail the credit only up till a certain period of time. That is, whatever credit is pertaining to 21-22 can be claimed up till the return filing date of September month of 22-23. Next month, September's return filing date, which is now extended in this budget up to 30th November. But that we will discuss when we will discuss budget related amendments. So next year's September month's return filing date is the last date to claim any missed credit during the year. Correct? What about utilization? Anytime you can utilize. Once you avail the credit, take it to your electronic credit ledger. Anytime you can carry it forward and offset it. That we have discussed. Now, in my example, you have all dates in front of you. All dates in front of you. 1st December 2021 was the date of the invoice. So, credit pertains to which year? Financial year 21-22. Now, this payment instead of 5th June, was made on 1st December 2022. On 1st December 2022, exactly after 1 year of the date of invoice. Okay. Now my question to you is that on 29th May 2022, I have reversed the credit. Is there any change? I will have to reverse it because 180 days passed. I have not made the payment. Whichever month is that, wherever 180 days are completing, in that month I will add it to my outward tax liability and pay it with interest. That area is over. Now, my payment is on 1st December 2022. Can I re-avail the credit? Is my question to you. Have you understood the facts clearly, very clearly? Can I re-avail the credit? Yes or no? How many think yes? How many think no? No wale kiti hai? Only 2, 3. Yes wale? Many other. Why no? And why yes? Let us discuss. Why no? Restriction on availment of ITC. Okay. Now read it again. Read the provision 204. However, once the recipient makes the payment of value of goods and or services along with tax, he will be entitled to avail the credit again without any time limit. Without any time limit. So that restriction on availment in terms of time limit is gone here. So they say avail it anytime. You make payment after 3 years. You make payment after 5 years. Whenever you make the payment, you re-avail the credit. Have you understood the provision? What happens if that invoice on 1st December 2021 was 1 lakh rupees, 1 lakh plus 18,000, 1 lakh 18,000 gross, and the payment which was made on 5th June was 50,000 plus GST on that. So 58,000, 8, 9, 59,000, half of it. What will happen? Proportionate. So you will claim the input tax credit pertaining to 9,000 only whenever you will make the remaining payment. What happens if payment is made but payment is odd, like 50,000? You don't know whether is basic plus GST or basic or only GST is paid. Who can tell you? Okay, forget that. 1 lakh plus 18,000, 1 lakh 18,000. Payment is not made up to 29th May, reversed. On 5th June, 18,000 rupees are paid to the buyer. Can you claim the input tax credit? I will say I have paid tax. Can you claim the input tax credit is my question. Out of 1 lakh 18,000, I am only paying 18,000 to my supplier on 5th of June. So how much credit can you avail in the month of June 2022? That is my question to you. So that is proportionate only. You are right. So 18,000 divided by 118 into whatever 18. That is the credit that you will claim. Clear? Any doubts in this example? This is a very, very important provision. Unfortunately, you randomly select any person who is a registered taxable person. Random. Just wild guess and you verify his books. I am damn sure that he is not reversing any credits because of 180 days condition. Nobody is following this provision, and unfortunately even the tax authorities are not very aggressive to recover this amount. Why? Because anyway वो payment जब करेंगे तब उनको credit मिलने ही वाला है. So only income of the government here is the interest. Now, have you understood this? Whatever I said just now. Only income of the government is interest, because अभी वो निकाल लेंगे ITC, बाद में वापस दे देंगे जब भी पेमेंट होगा, right? Now, smart people like you, chartered accountants, are suggesting client that don't reverse. On 29th May, you are reversed. On 5th June, you are re-availing. Don't reverse, don't re-avail. Just pay the interest. Is it fine? Technically, is it fine? Yes, it is fine technically, but legally wrong. How I will tell you. I will let go the credit related to 18,000 in the month of May. I will re-avail the credit in the month of June. Only difference is that from 1st December, means December month's return, till June month's return, I have used that amount which I was not supposed to, so I will pay interest. So smart chartered accountant guides the client that only pay interest in the month of June, don't reverse it in the month of May, and don't re-avail in the month of June. Technically everything is correct. There is no loss to revenue, but authorities may say that if you read the law, because this is just the simple language notes which are given to you. If you read the Bare Act, okay, then the second proviso to section 16(2) is drafted in such a manner that that it gives an interpretation that this credit is only eligible if it is reversed and re-availed. So tax authorities may always say that no, you are not eligible for this credit because it was supposed to be reversed and re-availed. You have not re-availed it, you have availed it, so credit will not be given to you. That is a stand that in extreme cases tax authorities may take. Of course, court will drop it considering the principle of natural justice and everything, but as far as the assessments are concerned, tax authorities can always take this stand and say that this credit is not eligible to you because you have not reversed, not re-availed. Clear? 180 days point very clear to you? Now next, what is the exception? Supplies on which tax is payable under reverse charge, of course, will not get covered. Deemed supplies without consideration. Schedule 3 अस्तर शेड्यूल्स आहेत. 1, 2 or 3? Second, without consideration. Supplies will be treated as supplies even without consideration. Additions made to the value of supplies on account of supplier's liability in relation to such supplies being incurred by the recipient of the supply. We have seen this in case of value of supply, right? So all these are exception, not major thing in here. Now next point, next condition in other conditions is time limit for availing ITC. Now this we have discussed already, availment and utilization, difference between the two. So there is a time limit which is prescribed in the law. Let us see what is that time limit. ITC on invoices, same page. ITC on invoices pertaining to a financial year or debit notes relating to invoices pertaining to financial year can be availed anytime till, means up to this date only you can claim the input tax credit. The due date of filing of the return for the month of September of the succeeding financial year, means next financial year, means what is the due date? Either it is 22nd October or 24th October. Usually we call this 20th October. But depending upon state, there are two categories of state in India. State category A, state category B. If you are into A category, 22nd. If you are into B category, 24th. Maharashtra is in 22nd category. Okay. The date of filing of the relevant annual return. What is annual return? GSTR 9 and 9C. GSTR 9 is annual return, 9C is reconciliation statement, which in common parlance we call as GST audit. So the date of filing the annual return, for the last date for filing annual return of any financial year is 31st December of the succeeding financial year. Which is the date? 31st December of the succeeding financial year. So, but a person can file it earlier also, no need to wait till last date. So earlier of these two dates will be considered as due date for claiming a ITC related to any tax invoice. So for example, write the date 15th April 2022. 15th April 2022. On this date, A buys goods, A sells goods to B worth rupees 1 lakh plus 18,000 tax. 1,18,000. Okay. Okay. In the month of April, A is showing this invoice in his outward tax liability as well as showing the details in his GSTR 1. So liability paid by the supplier, furnished by the details of the invoice. Okay, everything, goods are delivered in the same month. Then invoice, physical invoice copy is given to B. All conditions are satisfied. But B forgot to claim the input tax credit. We skipped it by mistake. There are 100 invoices. Out of that, one invoice of A got skipped. 99 he claimed. And this could not be realized unless the audit of this entity is conducted. Let's assume this way, because there is no monthly checks or anything like that. So the process is going in the month of October 2022, same year. It is realized by the accountant of Mr. B that they have skipped the invoice to be claimed as input tax credit. Can they claim it in the month of October 2022? Yes. Okay. If it is realized in the month of December 2022, can they claim it in the month of GSTR 3B of December 2022? Yes. If they realized in the last month, March 2023, can they claim it? If they realized in September 2023, can they claim in the month of GSTR 3B of the month of September 2023? Answer is yes. Will your answer remain the same if they have already filed their GSTR 9 on 30th April 2023? Yes? No? Yes or no? एवढं काय डिफिकल्ट आहे सर? अरे they have already filed, so date is already gone. Up till which time you can avail the input tax credit? Next financial year September's return filing date or date of filing of annual return GST 9. So before 30th April, because 30th April is the date of filing annual return, they should claim it. What was the due date of filing annual return? 30th December 2023, isn't it? But they have earlier filed it. गडबड केली तर skipped. No, gone. Okay, have you understood now? Normal situation up till 30th September. If annual return is filed before that, then that becomes the last date to claim the input tax credit. Clear? Reasoning. Now let us read the reasoning. Underlying reasoning for this restriction is that no change in return is permitted after September of the next financial year. So if they keep on changing, keep on claiming the previous periods, then no period will be actual. It will always be a question whether this is the entire period or it includes anything related to period. So they wanted to put some full stop, and that is the restriction they have put up. Now, whether this is legal or illegal, whether putting such condition, restriction in terms of time period is legal or illegal. Now I have challenged this particular section in Bombay High Court. I gave you the example of windmill. For that client, there was a demand by tax authorities, okay, about 1 CR, that you have claimed this input tax credit after 30th September of the next year. So credit is not eligible to you. Or they said that your suppliers have filed their return after 30th September. So credit is coming into your GST 2A after the 30th September. So we said no, this is not the intention of the law. Laws there, so legal terms were put up, and we said that this section itself is not correct. So I myself, I have challenged this section 16.4 in the Bombay High Court. Let's see what happens. If this gets, I mean, if the Bombay High Court restores my contention, this section can be modified, amended, or deleted. Depends upon that decision. I mean, obviously, department will again challenge it in the Supreme Court, and the matter will be ultimately settled by Supreme Court. Anyway, so that is the discussion about section 16.4. Exception is that time limit of 16.4 does not apply to reclaim or claim for re-availment of credit that has been reversed earlier. Now, which is this situation they are talking about? Which is this situation that they are talking about? Exception to 16.4. Come on. सेक्शन 16.4 ची लिमिट कुठल्या केससाठी लागणार नाही. Just seen the provision of 180 days, in which we have seen that it needs to be reversed and re-availed. For that, section 16.4 credit does not become applicable. Meaning, in simple terms, what we have seen in case of 3A, that credit again can be claimed without any time limit. This time limit is nothing but time limit specified under section 16.4. Okay. Now exempt supplies for some issue. Don't read that square. Let us directly go to the illustration. Now please close the books. Please close the books quickly. Now I will not go directly. I can ask anyone. So be prepared to give answer. Okay. बंद केले पुस्तक एवढा उशीर असा हळू का होते स्लो मोशन ready whatever we have seen in input tax credit all the conditions let us see how much have you understood and how can you correlate that with the facts of any case. Now first question, okay, I will read, you have to answer. Okay, A is a trader who places an order on B for a consignment of soda ash. A receives a buying order from C for the same quantity of soda ash. So A instructs B to deliver the goods to C and in turn he raises an invoice on C. Whether ITC allowed? If yes, if no, you have to reason yes and no. What is the reason? Okay, which category this example belongs to? Bill to, ship to. What happens in that case? Which condition is excused? Receipt, actual receipt of goods or services. So how do we write it? Though the goods are not physically received at the premises of A, section 16(2)B allows ITC of such goods to A. Clear? Okay. Now next question. It will be answered by you. Okay. The registered head office Mumbai of Z Private Limited enters into a contract with B Private Limited of Mumbai for repair and maintenance of computer system installed at its registered branch office in Bengaluru, Karnataka. B Private Limited issues an invoice on Z Private Limited, Mumbai for the services provided by it. Whether ITC is eligible. Have you understood the example or should I reread it? Reread it. The registered head office Mumbai of Z Private Limited enters into a contract with B Private Limited of Mumbai for repairs and maintenance of computer system installed at its registered branch office in Bengaluru, Karnataka. B Private Limited issues invoice on Z Private Limited Mumbai for the services provided by it. Yes or no? Allowed? Why allowed? Whether Z has received any physical services, goods or services. Services are received by Bengaluru, Karnataka, different GST number. Anyone can answer this question properly. Yes. Have you seen anything like ISD, input service distributor, head office? We have seen it. So even if the services are not received by head office itself, it registers itself as input service distributor. So it takes the input and distributes it in the rules, in the manner which is specified under law. So though the actual services are received by the branch office and not by the head office, section 16(2)B allows ITC of such repair and maintenance services to head office. Clear? Now next question. XYZ enters into a contract with ABC for supply of 10 metric tons of chemicals, rupees 1,18,000. inclusive of GST, means 1 lakh plus 18,000. In the month of August, the chemical is to be delivered in lots over a period of 3 months. ABC raises the invoice for the entire amount in August itself, and XYZ also makes the payment for the same in the same month, but the supply is completed in November. Eligibility of ITC. November. Why? Supply completed or last lot? Though XYZ paid the full tax as early as August, it can take the input tax credit of the same only on receipt of last installment of the chemical, that is in the month of November. Clear? Now next question. Due to a quality dispute, ABC Limited withheld payment on machine supplied by a vendor till it could be rectified. Over 180 days went by this dispute. Can the ITC be claimed? Due to quality dispute, ABC Limited withheld the payment on a machine supplied by vendor to it till it could be rectified. Means error जो होता तो rectify करेस तोपर्यंत payment hold वर ठेवलेलं आहे. Over 180 days went by this dispute. Can be availed further. First reversal. So when will that happen? Correct. So the credit taken by ABC on the invoice got added to the output tax liability of ABC, and thus it had to pay back the credit. Only after the vendor rectified the machine and ABC released the payment could ABC take the reavail the credit again. Now you. Hercules Machinery delivered a machine to XYZ in the month of January under invoice number 49 dated 28 January for rupees 4,15,000 plus GST, and undertook trial runs and calibration of the machine as a part as per the requirements of XYZ. The amount chargeable for the post delivery activities was covered in a debit note raised in the month of April 50,000 rupees 50,000 plus GST. XYZ did not file its annual return till the month of October. Whether the credit is eligible, if yes, how, if no, how, why? Have you understood the question? परत एकदा सांगू. Hercules Machinery delivered a machine to XYZ in the month of January under an invoice number 49 dated 28th January for rupees 4,50,000 plus GST, and undertook trial runs and calibration of the machine as per the requirements of XYZ. The amount chargeable for the post delivery activities was covered in a debit note raised in the month of April for rupees 50,000 plus GST. XYZ did not file its annual return till the month of October. Now, before you answer the question, I want you all to go to page number 204 again. And read the 3B in that time limit tab. Completed? What's left? ITC on invoices pertaining to a financial year or debit notes relating to invoices pertaining to a financial year. So this debit note in your example is issued in the month of April, but it belongs to which financial year? Earlier financial year. So how do we write this answer? Though the debit note is received in the next financial year, it relates to an invoice received in the preceding financial year. Therefore, the time limit for taking ITC available on 50,000 as well as on 4,50,000 is 20th October. That is the last date of filing return of the month of September of preceding financial year, or the date of filing annual return for the preceding financial year, for the financial year, whichever is earlier. So that is filed in October means that is the last date to claim the input tax. Clear? So we complete that. After that, there is point number 4, apportionment of credit. That is thankfully removed from your syllabus. We have discussed this, what is apportionment. So no more discussions on that. Tomorrow we will start with block credits, another interesting area. Okay. Thank you. You are going to manage for costing and all without screen? Difficult. Let's see if any solution is there.